day. Welcome back to the Institute for Black Male Studies interview series. Today, I have the honor of interviewing one of the founders of what's referred to as the Black Manosphere or the Negro Manosphere online, especially on YouTube. He is one of several founders, or one of three actually, from what I understand. But he's also one of the most widely, prolific of the founders. His video count is ridiculous. He's constantly putting out work and giving opinions, and is also really a medical doctor on top of that. So he's got multiple kind of he's got his feet in multiple pots, so to speak. But he's doing some incredible work. He's getting the word out, and he's actually been really cultivating an entirely different space for Black men in particular to really begin to understand their own existence. So let me bring up Mr. Oshay Duke Jackson. How you doing, brother?
What's going on, Doc? I'm glad to be here. Honored to be here. Really love your work and what you do for our community.
Oh, I'm very appreciative to hear that. I've been wanting to share some of your work for a while now, so thank you for taking the time out. I know how busy you are. I wanted to start with an understanding of your life, because you know, we're going to get to this throughout the course of the interview, but you're doing things that we've really not seen. So I wanted to kind of start out with understanding who exactly Oshay is. Can you tell us a little bit about where you're from and how you kind of came up?
So I was born in 1981 at St. Francis Hospital in Los Angeles County in Linwood, California. And I was born to two parents. Both had been through the UC system. My dad went to eventually graduating from UCLA. My mother fell short of a degree at UC Davis. So both of my parents had what you would call socially privileged in that sense. And that allowed me as a child to have somewhat of an academic value and stress education. And, my parents really encouraged me to do well in school and to, value, my academics and stuff like that. However, like many African-American children in the 80s and 90s, my father fell victim to the crack epidemic. And he was shot several times, and because we lived on Santa Fe at a point. And then after that, we moved to Watts, which we lived across the street from Grape Street Elementary School, which is the home of the notorious Grape Street Watts Crips. And not only did my father struggle with that, but my father and his mother, my grandmother, who's now deceased, had other sisters who came from Natchitoches, Louisiana, also in the Great Migration in the early 50s to late 50s to California. And many of their grandchildren, none of my grandmother's children or grandchildren got into gangs, but her sister's kids, my great aunt's kids, did, and their grandkids. So our family in Los Angeles, it was oscillating around gang violence and people falling victim to crack. And so my mother, who was originally from Sacramento, didn't want me to grow up under that, environment. Because, it would be days, my dad would be gone for days, strung out and stuff like that. We would see him at gas stations and things like this. So at the same time, he was the head of the deacon board at our church, which was called Community AOH. That was in Compton, on Compton Boulevard. And, so my godmother was, very dear to me. She's since now passed on, which was our pastor's wife at the time. So my mother decided to get us out of Los Angeles and moved us to Sacramento, where my grandmother and grandfather were a lot more stable. They were really big into church. But unfortunately, my father, his desire for cocaine and crack cocaine at the time was still very strong, and he couldn't really kick it. He eventually did kick it. But once he kicked it, and then my parents' relationship was at that time, my father went and got, astonishingly, he was a very intelligent guy. He was accepted into the Sac State nursing program, but then had to leave because him and mom got into it. And he went to USC, had a program in Los Angeles that was given a 2-year nursing license. I believe it was 1997. So he was in his 40s at that time, and he really turned on his life around. He went to I believe now he's at Drew, Charles Drew, which is in Watts, and he's a nurse practitioner now. But it really devastated my life. I had certain days of hating both parents. I grew up in certain years without my father there. It was tough. My grandfather was as strong as he could be, but he wasn't a man who was learned. He wasn't a smart man. He had only a 3rd grade education. So he wasn't the person that pushed me to be really strong in my academics, or really strong in a work ethic like my father would have done. So those particular years were vital for me, as they were very sensitive. And so things that I probably would have accomplished if my parents were together, I believe, my life would be much different now. But, thank God for how things turned out, because I was able to rebound. But it was tumultuous. I went through a lot of things myself that was self-inflicted, and then, my family members who were also not that bright at the time. It was crazy. And so I understand, what happens when you remove the man from the house, and when the parents can't stay together and stuff like that. So, but luckily I had enough people around me. I had a strong church family that was National Baptist, and, had people that looked out for me at that time. And you're a little bit older than me, so you remember at that time you had more of a community around African-American families. Even if they were not your family, you would be able to, we had a lady named Miss B across the street. So if, she would call me, I'm gonna tell your mama, and people who looked out for you. It's not like it is today. So that helped. I had a lot of people who cared about me in my life. A lot of people that was in my church family, people that was in the coaching family, people that we Little League baseball, AAU basketball, friends that had fathers and stuff like that. I was around, and my dad was there, and I was able to stay with him sometime. I was still active. I had an older brother too, but it was still, thank God for them. But if it wasn't for them, I probably couldn't even be living right now, to be honest, if it wasn't for the external people who cared about me.
Okay. What kind of student were you, would you say? Because of all of that, you were, all you went through, how would you say you took to school?
Oh man. I was always at that time, I got accepted into Christian Brothers High School as a freshman. So I was able to keep up academically, but I was a student, really didn't try. So I would be a student that was mid-level, B minus, C plus, stuff like that. I was, I really didn't care. And once I left the Catholic school and went back to my home school, which is Grant High School, I was barely, not saying getting by, but I just wasn't trying. It wasn't until I got into the community college system that I started at some point trying to put effort. And then got into, the university system. I started doing a lot better. But, as far as a student, I wasn't a person that was, and unfortunately, I picked one of the hardest majors that you can do, which was, biology. And, I just 20s about, so I was bullshitting. I was a smart guy, but,
Well,
I was mid-level.
The signal kind of went in and out a minute ago. You said you picked biology, and then you were kind of going on from there about.
Yeah, I picked biology, and I wasn't matching the intensity of what the subject actually required. Yeah, sometimes. So I would find myself.
But you were one of those students where things kind of came easy to you as far as school, but you had so many things going on outside of it that. Is that a good assessment, or would you?
Well, I would say, definitely when it came to like math and science and stuff like that, depending on what the topic was,
okay,
I could pick it up, or I couldn't pick it up. It's just, like, for example, organic chemistry, you had the R and S configurations where you see things in 3D, for, stuff like that. And that kind of stuff was more difficult for me. I think it's difficult for any student that's in medicine. If you ask anybody, what's the course that they hated the most, everybody would say organic chemistry is the you can have. So of course, certain things would be harder for me than others.
Okay.
But hindsight is 2020. Certain things definitely came easy to me. Some things didn't.
Okay.
But the things that when things didn't come easy, I would find myself very easily discouraged.
Okay. Okay.
Versus my mentality now is, if I can't get it, then I will try until I do get it. That's
Okay.
my but that mentality was adopted as I got older. It wasn't like that when I was younger. Yes.
Right. Okay. So tell us a little bit about, from the high school to college years.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about the Oshay that was at that point in life. Where was your head at? What was your life experience looking like? High school to college age. What did
Mm-hmm.
that look like for you?
Well, I was always a person that wanted to work. I felt like anybody else. I would achieve at least college degree level, but my expectations of myself was very minimal. And I'm just going to be honest, not only myself, my parents had very small expectations of me. They were happy that I was just working, happy I had a job. That's all my family really expected out of me. If I was going to do something great, they would support it. But if I didn't, they were just happy that I was a law-abiding citizen and I wasn't killing nobody. But for me, I was trying to be just like any other kid. I was trying to get girls, trying to date, buy Jordans, which I still have addiction to now. But I was just like any other kid at that time in the late 90s and 2000s. I was trying to go to the club, trying to experiment with the girls and stuff like that, and trying to date, trying to work and trying to get back to the club and stuff like that. I was just doing every young guy was doing. But I did have a desire to want to improve myself over time. I always wanted to do that. And even though my expectations were not that great, I always felt that deep down inside, I can do more than what I was doing. I didn't know what it would be, but I felt that I was limiting myself. And that if I really got around the right situation and if I could build my confidence a little bit more, I would be able to achieve things that nobody expected of me. That I knew. I knew that I had enough talent to do it, but I just didn't know how to harness it. But I was probably around the same mentality of many of my friends at that time in that generation.
Okay. So did you go to college after high school immediately, or what was that? What was that transition like? What did you do?
So right after high school, I was my mom had a fiance, which was not my father. And I was working at Kentucky Fried Chicken on Arden, and that was funny because at that time, working fast food, my friends would drive by and see me catching the bus, and they would laugh at me and things like that. Then I was able to get a job at you remember, living in California, I believe it was called Lucky's, Albertsons. Then it was changed
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Save Mart. So I
Yeah.
worked for them as
Yeah.
a courtesy clerk.
Mm-hmm.
Then subsequently thereafter, I worked for AT&T in a call center. That was real ghetto. It was fun. But I basically, because Sacramento was really a city at this time in the late 90s and early 2000s. It was a city that was known for having a lot of call centers. So there was Sprint, PCS call center. There was Verizon. There was AT&T. So there are a lot of jobs that revolved around the kind of call center industry, because Sacramento was a relatively cheap in comparison to other nearby areas. Because Sacramento is the valley, right? So if you look at areas such as San Francisco or Oakland, which that's the Bay Area, Fresno is where you're at. It's even cheaper than where we were. So many, so companies can come to Sacramento and set up and pay less taxes, but yet still, be in California. So that's what I pretty much did at that time.
Okay. Now, what came first, YouTube or international travel?
Well, if you want to be honest, it was so YouTube, because what happened was in 2014, I got fired from Solar City, which was a company that Elon Musk had an investment in. I started there. I was only there for like 6 weeks, and they didn't think that I was good enough to stay there, so they fired me. I was really devastated by that. So my mom, I had about $15,000 in my 401k, which wasn't a lot. And my mom was telling me, this is the time right now you need to go back and try to get into medical school. So, what I ended up getting into the school that I'm at now, which is a medical university here in a city called Lublin. So I'm here. I've been here since 2015. So once I got here, at that particular time, I started a YouTube channel because I was unemployed. I was getting unemployment, so I started a YouTube channel, and but I wasn't uploading the video regularly. It might be a video I will upload once a week, or because I didn't have any idea that you can make money off of YouTube. So I have very small subscribers, maybe 40 or 50, something like that. I wasn't really trying to grow. But it wasn't until I came to Poland that I got a little bit more active on the platform. But if you really want to, say when people started noticing me as a YouTuber, I would say the international travel was what really got it there, because I came to Poland, and then once I came to Poland, first year I was doing a lot of what we consider the didactic sciences in the first year of medical school. So biochemistry, physiology, anatomy, histology, genetics, biochemistry. So you don't have a lot of time to do that. I was going to school 6 days a week. So I would post a video on a Black community related issue in my early Manosphere career, 10 minutes on my phone, and that would be it. So I wouldn't post a lot. But once I started to come here, and it took me 2 years to get 2,000 subscribers. So I would say YouTube came first, but the notoriety on YouTube didn't come until the international travel.
Okay. Now, did you do an undergraduate degree before you started med school, or did you just go straight in? Okay.
I graduated from the California State University, Sacramento.
There it is. Okay.
In 2007. The Hornets. So I graduated in 2000 with a degree in Bachelor of Science of Biology. Okay. So from the College of Natural Science and Mathematics.
Okay. And now you said was Poland the first place after that, or was there another before that?
No. So I went to Sacramento State, and shout out to Dr. Patrick Brown, who was the head at that time of the UC Berkeley postbac. So for students who maybe didn't achieve like they should have achieved, and they want to improve their resume for any professional program. And for those who are listening, the professional programs are MBA, Master of Divinity, law school, dental school, medical schools, which is different from research-based PhD programs like what you have. One of the things that happens if a student wants to improve because as you know, medical school is very competitive. Exactly. So you would go to what is a postbac program. So you take some more advanced courses to show a medical school admissions community that you are strong enough as a candidate to actually take on the first 2 years of the program. So that's what I did. I went to UC Berkeley, and I was working at the time Verizon Wireless. And I've never told anybody. This is the first person I've ever told this before. So I was working there, and I was driving from I was working in a city called Folsom. And if you're from California, you heard of Folsom Prison, which is it's in Sacramento County, but it's about 30 miles outside Sacramento. So I was working in Folsom, and I would drive from Folsom, which is going towards Reno. If you understand how it works. So Reno is the opposite way towards the Bay Area. So I would have to drive from work and then head towards the Bay sometimes to go catch the BART into. Sometimes the class would be in San Francisco. Sometimes it would be on University Avenue in Berkeley. It could be in Oakland. They had different satellite centers. So that's where I went, and I stayed there for 2.5 years in the program. And I always would thank Dr. Patrick Brown, because he gave me a really pep talk. He says, well, if you want to come here, you're going to end up being the man. And he was right. That's really what took me to another level, was that program. It changed a lot of my mindset, because it was adverse. I had to still work and still complete that program. So I'm very thankful for that. But then after that, I stayed out of school for another 2.5 years competitively. Okay. So I was working and things like that. And then so I decided to, at age 34, to roll the dice right? So I
Okay.
bet on myself and came here at that time.
So this is a more of a two-part question then.
Mhm.
What would you say? Because it sounds like you were a non-traditional student. You
Yes,
work.
I was definitely non-traditional. Yes.
So what would you say to a young brother right now who's not traditional and
Mhm.
who doesn't really kind of have any direction? What would you tell him as far as advising him on what his options could be? And the second question,
Mhm.
why medicine? So those are two questions. What would you
Mhm.
say to a non-traditional brother right now?
Well, what I would say to anybody who's a non-traditional student, which is, you're not coming out of high school, right? You maybe you're definitely older. So if you're a non-traditional student, I would want to know, like, number one, what do you want to be? What are you trying to get accomplished? That's, I mean, if you're 26, 30, something like that, if you're going to do the non-traditional pathway, then you need to know what you're trying to do and how to get the resources for you to achieve that. And whether that is, learning things outside the lecture, like, I learned a lot of stuff from, move biochemistry on YouTube and things like that. I learned a lot from just additional programs, how to prepare for things, reading in advance. You can get a lot of good tips from communities online that, let's say, when I was going to school in 2005, 2006, that wasn't available like it is now. Now you can learn literally how to read EKGs and things like that just by watching YouTube videos over and over. That wasn't available 15 years ago. So I would say, what do you want to do and what are your resources to get it achieved? Okay. And I would say that. But the second thing, or secondarily, what I would say is don't put so much of a time on yourself. If you're trying to do something that's really competitive, an example would be law or dentistry or engineering or just anything, whatever it could be whatever you want to do. Don't beat yourself down on it because you haven't achieved it now or you're too old. Because a lot of non-traditional students could be psyched out because sometimes you might be in a classroom with a bunch of kids that's 20 and you're 30, right? Or you're 32 and they're 22. I wouldn't worry about that. Worry about doing what you're supposed to do, because that's the most psychological, I think, problem that many students have when you're doing stuff. There's a lady that graduated medical school here. She was 56, right? I thought I was going to be old at 34. She was coming into the program at 52, and she actually ended up matching. So I would say be focused on doing what you're supposed to do. Be focused on what your plan is. Be focused on getting the resources to achieve it. If you don't have it, then how can you get it? And putting yourself in the community of people who have done what you've done. Right? You're not the first non-traditional student. You won't be the last. There's many people who went to school. I know there's Dr. T.S. Johnson. They went to school and graduated traditionally in one field. But coronavirus has knocked your industry out. Now you're back in school learning another genre, right? That happens a lot. It happened even with people who have degrees like engineering, right? They change field all the time.
Right.
So it's. I used to have class people like that. So knowing what you're trying to do and how to do it, and then not beating yourself down because you're a Black man and you haven't got this yet and you haven't got that yet. It all is a process, and appreciate it because it's tough sometimes, right? But the thing about it is, don't psych yourself out.
Right.
That's the main thing.
But speaking of, you mentioned ago the different fields and how competitive they can be. You went for the gusto. You
Yeah.
went into medicine. That's a whole different level. Why that? Why did you choose that?
Well, medicine is let me kind of go back, because medicine is a very broad field with many different interdisciplines inside of the subject. For me, I wanted to use my personality, which I thought would be good in primary care, so in family practice. My father was a nurse. My grandmother was a nurse. My aunt was a nurse. I have a second cousin who went to the UC San Diego Medical School. She's a OBGYN. So these, health has been something that's been, quite favorable in our family for a long time. I used to see my dad going to school and stuff like that, and going to get into nursing. And I find medicine to be enjoyable, but it's something you have to work hard for. That's something I like about it. But I like the not only the grind, but I like the fact that in medicine you can use your personality to solve problems. Because one of the things that you have to do, and no matter how good as a clinician you are, or how smart you are, you have to be able to talk to patients on the very elementary, basic, empirical level. You have to be able to talk to patients, and patients have to be able to like you, to reveal information for you so that you can solve problems. All right. And a lot of times what we're seeing in our country is we have a lot of people, especially in the Black community, in the Black male community, where men in general, Black men in particular, I'm using them as an example, don't trust physicians. So they don't want to tell you what's going on. And so you can't help them. But if you're a good physician and you have people skills, you can then get information from patients that another physician will not be able to obtain, because sometimes patients are embarrassed to talk about what's going on with their body or going on with them, because they don't have the relationship with the physician. They feel a certain kind of way. And so then, that what we have is a lot of misdiagnosis. And a lot of time, the misdiagnosis is not because of the physician. It's just that the patient didn't want to reveal that, but it looks bad on the physician. So for me, when I came to medicine and understanding, because a lot in Poland, they don't have these courses like, humanities, and how the California curriculum was, in California State, you got to have certain levels of foreign language to graduate. You need to have physical education and stuff like that. You need to have certain levels of, humanities, 9 units and stuff. So that's not really what goes on in European medical education. They just kind of go strictly for what's going on. But what I've noticed is our biology, if you take like 30 or 40 units in non-science subjects to give you a better understanding of the world. And that's the one thing I like about the American system. And that's what I like about medicine. It allows you to connect with people for who outside of, hey, you have acute and you probably, might die, or, you have, Hodgkin's lymphoma, something like that. But it allows you to connect to solve patients' problems on a personal level with your personality. That's the strongest aspect of medicine. And that's what really draws my desire to the subject. Not just that you have, acute myocardial, ST elevated myocardial infarction. And here's, you have atrial fibrillation. Here's the digoxin, and amiodarone, go out, the buy, or you have type 2 diabetes, here's metformin, buy. No, it's just relating to the patient. And here's what we need to do to improve your quality of life. But I got to get this information from you because, I want you to trust me. And I think that we forget about that in the healthcare field, that people really want to deal with who they like. And I think that I'm a very likable person that could use my personality to solve those issues. And that's what really drew me into the field.
Okay. Now, switching back over to YouTube. So you start this, YouTube career in the midst of med school. And you talked about how long it took you just to build up the first 2,000 subs. You weren't thinking of this as a career. Many of us didn't know you could make money on YouTube at all. You know what I mean? But in the midst of doing that, tell the audience, what exactly is the Manosphere, and how did you come into that and decide you wanted to produce content in that area?
Okay, so June 2015 is kind of when I would say I was a little bit before, but it was a guy from Philadelphia. You've heard of him before. His name was the Obsidian Media Network. And so before I came to Poland, I was listening to this guy, and he was calling himself the voice of the everyday brother. And, and he was really adamant about the problems that we were having in the voiceless concerns that we were having as African-American men. I talked about many of these things on my channel before I met him. But it wasn't from the position, that was from more of a personal, anecdotal position. Obsidian's message was more to the whole entire Black male community that all of us have not been heard for this or that reason. And in order for us to be heard, we need to fund our own message, and we need to build our communities to be heard like Black women are. I wasn't thinking about it like that. It was very, if I could be honest, it was very selfish. You know, I think most times when you're coming on here because you want to vent or something like that, you know, and that actually position is a very precarious one to have. But Obsidian is the one that really put the battery in our back that a lot of us as Black men, we are not being heard and we need to do something about it. Okay. And so once I heard him and I listened to him, I said, this guy's right. And so I started getting more active amongst Black male content creators at that time. We were not known as the Black Manosphere or any part of the Manosphere. It was just a group of Black men that had these talking points against negative stereotypes about Black men. It wasn't until now Obsidian did work with people like Rollo Tomasi, people like Roosh and the defunct Return of Kings website, because that's who we all were looking up to, guys like that. But once I started to really was going in the early roots, my skills were, and I always say that Obsidian was Peter and I was Paul. Obsidian was on this rock I will build my church, and I went and spread the gospel. My contribution to the Black Manosphere, if there's anything, if there's anything to it, was just a lot of talent in our community that were not being heard, and that we needed to develop our guys and let our guys swing the bat. You know, so that's how we eventually, and that's how Kevin Samuels got interested in our community, because we were talking about these things and Kevin Samuels started watching us. Right now, and he always talks about it because we wanted to give Black men an opportunity to swing the bat. And we didn't care where you was, if you was a nerd, if you was the ex-thug. Now, it was some problems with that early on. I get into that. But I had to come out and say, no, we need all of our brothers from our community. And it was even guys, you know, from the UK. So it was guys that was that was feeling the same ways that we were. So my contribution was, I thought I was a pretty good content creator, but I was more of a person that wanted to build the community and wanted to bring on more guys into our community. And because I had a passion for our men, right? And we've seen what our community has been without our guys being there. And a lot of us didn't really support each other. And we didn't really provide, you know, our Black male community is very underserved. So I was trying to basically serve the underserved the best way that I could. Mm-hmm. And I didn't end up knowing that it was going to be this $1 million opportunity that we have today. But certainly that was been the driving force, was to help our men get heard and to bring our best guys, such as yourself. I know Obsidian was the one that mentioned me to you, but to bring our best guys in here to swing the bat, mm-hmm. because you're only as good as your best guys, right? Okay. And you're one of our best guys that we have. So I said, listen, we got to bring in these guys to our community and give them a reason to stay. Because that's another thing too, Doc. You know, Black men can be apathetic, as you know. You've been dealing with our people for a long time. We don't give a lot of our people real good opportunity or reason to deal with us. And that's something I want to change real quick. I said, listen, we have to give Black men an incentive to want to work with us. What are we offering? You know, what is it that we're offering? At that time, we didn't have a very big financial community as we do now. But it grew over time. And when people started to say, okay, hey, I can come in and then also I can be contributed for what I have to say. Now you have the Dr. T.S. Johnsons and you have the Dennis Sperlings and you have the Kevin Samuels and you have these other guys from industries that we would have never been able to get, you know, pocket watching with JT. So things that I wanted to add, let's bring in the other guys to the equation that, you know, the PhDs, the accountants, the professional skilled workers, the guy who might be just get out of jail, right? All of those guys, the truck drivers who were very, 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 they held us down a lot. The truck driving community really held us down. So we wanted to bring in all of our brothers over here to where we are. And that was my job. My job was to find the guys. And that's what I did.
Okay. So there's kind of a white manosphere.
Yes.
And then, you know, so you, and what I principally heard is that there are 3 people responsible for what's referred to as Manosphere 2.0. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That is very correct.
So yourself,
yes,
Obsidian, Mumia Obsidian Ali,
yes,
and Angry Man.
Yes.
Yes. You 3 are known for founding the 2.0 wave of the Manosphere.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about the break from Black men's break from the white manosphere and 1.0, if you would,
Mhm.
so people can get a sense of what this whole kind of context is.
Yeah, so 1.0 would have included guys such as um I'm trying to remember some of the guys, but there was one brother that was from the UK. I forgot his name. There was Phil Scott, who was actually the African Diaspora Network right now. He was talking about things like child support and stuff like that. And those guys, like even Black Ram, he was the one of the guys that was probably in both generations. Those guys were talking about things that we were talking about. Sergeant Willie Pete, Thug Titian. These guys are talking about things from a very anecdotal level. If I can really describe the differences between 1.0 and 2.0, it was more on an anecdotal level. These are things that I'm experiencing. So it wasn't more or less like this is what the average Black man is experiencing, although you might have heard some things like that. But I think that a lot of the experiences that a lot of these guys are talking about were very anecdotal. The difference between, and then also, that community didn't have a whole lot of collaboration between content creators. The big difference between 2.0 was 2.0 included something that was very rare that you don't see with Black men, whether it was online or in person. You saw a culmination of Black men coming together to build what is a community online. And instead of being very anecdotal with it, 2.0 sought out to talk to other Black men and solve problems for other guys outside of us. So the 2.0 guys became more of content creators that didn't talk more or less about themselves, although we were used as examples and sometimes, but we tried to solve issues for guys speaking to where they were at. That was something that was different, in my opinion, than what 1.0 did. And not only did 2.0 solve that issue, you started to see certain things that came into another thing too that was much different was the dating stuff. So 2.0 was the first community, like and White Manosphere was pretty good at this. The White Manosphere had a pickup community that even some of the Black guys were a part of, the seduction and stuff like that. You saw guys like Steve Dean Williams and Alan Roger Curry. So 2.0 was the people that brought in, let's say, Black dating coaches that talked about those things. And NegroManosphere.com wrote about those stuff. And that's how you saw guys like Donovan Sharp, who was involved in the White Manosphere, but was in the doghouse over there. So it gave him an opportunity to grow over here. You saw guys like Ron Wills, guys like Lucario, guys that burgeon like alpha male strategies, right? So guys that really came and brought a Black dating perspective to African American men that many guys felt like that the game that they were hearing from the white guys just didn't resonate with them. And a lot of stuff that men go through in America is very similar, but the things that Black men go through are very unique. And you understand that because we have our own unique culture. I mean, if anybody doesn't believe that, go to a Baptist church and on Martin Luther King Boulevard, and you go to a white Baptist church, and you'll see that we're different. So the things that we experience were very different, and we wanted to be unique in the way that we address our guys. So we would have certain things that address guys where they were at. And 1.0 didn't really do that. There wasn't a lot of people that was kind of bringing people into the community that was, trying to help one another and stuff like that. And, we had our problems here and there like any other community would, but that's what you saw. And then you saw, let's say, guys that were in fashion like Kevin Samuels. You saw guys who were in truck driving like HC Logistics. You saw guys who were in tech like Keep It Techie. So you start to see guys like Antoine Wade NBA. So then you started seeing guys who were coming in with specialized skill sets that a lot of Black men could relate and give and give a lot of information that was very needed for African American men of any age group. So that's when we started to see, a lot of talking about Black entertainment, but then dating. Then you started seeing a lot of professional stuff coming out, and you still see that. And then some guys are geopolitical, like you have your BGSs and things like that. But but that the community started to be more diversified, whereas 1.0 was not.
Yeah. What would you say the time frame was from 1.0 to 2.0 and all of that kind of stuff?
I would say 1.0, if I could really think about it, because for some of this I wasn't active in the YouTube community, but for what I would think that 1.0 could have been anywhere from 2008
Okay.
to about 2013 or 2014.
Okay. And that's about when you came in, about 14.
Yeah, Black Manosphere 2.0 definitely started at the end, I would say between August 2015.
Wow.
The ideas came in about June 2015. That's when the 2.0 came out.
Okay.
So, and we're still in the 2.0 generation. So,
Right.
so it's grown a lot. And I mean, if someone would have told me that we would have a guy from our community that would have 1 million subscribers on Instagram and on YouTube, I would have laughed at you. I thought you were lying.
Now you've had now you currently have 2 channels.
Yes.
But you've done something I haven't seen happen really in too many spaces at all. You've managed to take this platform and make it an international one. And it sounds like you recently split that into 2 separate channels, but you've been doing this international work for a while. Talk a little bit about how that came about and what it looks like, because you have kind of a Pan-African focus that you've almost kind of married to your Manosphere work. Tell us a little bit about how that came about.
Well, I've always had strong Black community leanings. I had a real desire for post-colonialism history. So to be Alpha War and Thomas Sankara and what happened in Liberia after William Tubman and all that. So I had that interest, but as an African American, I had some African friends, not so many, but I did notice that there was kind of somewhat of a disdain between the 2 groups that wasn't being talked about. So when I came to Poland, which is living in America, because in America, there's a lot of African Americans obviously there. But coming into Poland, when you're Black, you join in the global Black community. So you have your Zimbabweans here, you have your Nigerians here, and then very quickly you start to realize that nobody can discern you from the Zimbabwean guy or the Nigerian guy. And I have very strong African features anyway. So you're Black. That's all that matters. If you're walking down the street and some guys want to drive by and say something racist to you, which has happened to me, they're not going to know that, oh, wait a minute, that guy, he's an African-American guy. Realize then that at the very...
We're the signal's going in and out.
If they didn't like you, you're Black, that's all that mattered. So I started working with... I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Well, the signal was going in and out for a minute while you were speaking. But you mentioned, somebody driving past you yelling out racist terms, and they couldn't tell you apart.
Yeah. So that's when I realized, oh shit, I don't have an African American privilege in Europe unless I'm at the airport and I show my passport. So I started working with the African community here. We were the first people to bring the Nigerian Independence Day party here to Poland, to this part of Poland. We bought the first Afro Beats party, certain summits that were brought here to Lublin. So I started working with the African community here because there were students that were getting attacked by people by going to the Polish nightclubs, and it was really tragic. One guy got his jaw broken. Some people even got killed. So I started working with the African community. And then once I started making money on YouTube, I wanted to take a trip. So in 2017, I took a trip to Uganda. I met some girl on Facebook, just like, yo, can you show me around when I get there?
Uh-oh.
I don't know if you can still hear me.
Yeah, we lost you for a second. So you mentioned Uganda. Yeah. And I was just about to ask you, how the hell did out of all the places you chose, like, how did that come about? And you mentioned the girl. So start from there.
Yeah, because Uganda, there's a story about Idi Amin. So Idi Amin was a very interesting character, whether you like him or not. So I had, seen a lot of documentaries on him. And then I had searched about what are the people like there. what did the women look like? And I kept, reading like, oh, these white girls are fine. So I was like, well, shit, I'll go there. And then they had a visa on arrival. So I didn't have to, work really hard to get a visa. So I decided to go. And the girl that I met, her name was P. Maya or Josephine. Her sister is Jonita, who is the manager of Kinganda now, the Kinganda YouTube channel. And that's where we manage our studio. So it was at that time that I was able to experience Africa. I didn't like it for the first few days, but I found out I had a real big passion for it as I left. And I kept wanting to get back. I just kept wanting to get back. I just kept wanting to get back. And that was kind of the beginning of the end for me.
But go back, kind of explain that. You said you didn't like it at first. You came to like, what happened?
Well, so I would probably say when I first got there, when you're coming to Uganda and you don't really know anybody, right? So you're just hanging out at the mall or walking around, and then you have some jet lag and you're getting bit by those mosquitoes, keep tearing your ass up. So you can't really take advantage of the city because you don't know people that much. So it could be a boring trip. But what I will say is once I started to get the hang of everything, I started investing and going back. Toward the end of the trip, I didn't want to go back to Poland, and I had my girlfriend here at the time. I just really loved it. I fell in love with the country, and I've had a strong passion for Africa ever since. And I've been going around telling people to visit Africa, man. It's gonna change your life because it changed mine. I know you're a professor in Africana studies, and white people really did a job on us, brother, by robbing us from the ability to do things in Africa, make it so difficult. And I didn't know that until I started to go. How much we have been robbed of, as much as we've gained from being U.S. citizens too. At the same time, we've been robbed of a lot of opportunity that we don't talk about, and we never will know.
Absolutely. Now you had something happen in 2020, and this is something. I mean, it happened all over the world, but it's still a little unique for you. So in 2020, we know COVID hit, pandemic hit, and then some people got stranded in different places. Talk about what happened with you in 2020.
Yeah, so 2020, I got stranded in Uganda. I went to let me go back to 2019. 2019, I almost lost the business that we were starting there because of my own errors, just not managing the team well, cussing everybody out, just being a nigga. So I had to. The guys who were working for me didn't want to work for me anymore. So Jonita decided she was going to still stick with me. So we needed to. I was hanging out with Woody Maya. I don't know if you know who he is. In 2018, I met a connection with an editor to help me run my studio that I wanted to do. Because if you've seen my work in the last 20 months, you know that the production has gotten a lot better. So I wanted to be able to have a production team that was based out of Africa. And there's a guy I know that can make that happen for me. So I went there to get that established because I had lost the talent in the business by just being the nigga, to be honest. I hope I can say that. So anyways, make a long story short, I ended up going there, and we had bought some equipment with me, a PC that we had to unpack the parts inside of it so that it wouldn't tear up during the flight. Qatar charged me $850 to bring all our stuff there. It was over the limit. So when we got there, then COVID hit. And then when COVID hit, the Poland said, well, it's you come back, you need to come back by now. But then my team was developing, right? And at that time, I told my school that, any classes that I'm gonna take, I'll just take them next year. So I did. I stayed in Africa for 10 months, 11 months, and I loved it. I got a chance to really develop a lot of interpersonal skills. We made a lot of money, because YouTube was still popping. I was able to really establish the studio, establish a lot of goals in our everyday production focus. We were able to produce new ideas out in the content strategy and things like that, how to do it. We were able to get each guy a PC. And I wouldn't take it from the world. We had a really good ability to bond and understand how the business works, more or less. And you're still seeing elements of that today on my channel. So I actually loved it. I enjoyed it. I didn't want to come back. But I had to finish what I start. So I had to come back.
Okay. So you've managed to marry a couple things. So you got your manosphere work on Black men, you got this Pan-Africanist internationalism going, and you've managed to use comedy in a way that I really don't see a whole lot of people able to do. And it comes down to not only you and your natural ability, but even down to the editing. Like, you incorporated the editing into, just kind of making things funny, and you'll take on almost any issue, you know what I mean, and actually be able to come at it in a fairly unique way. How long did it take you to build this style? And did you always know you wanted to do it, or did it just kind of happen organically?
Well, I would say to stand out on YouTube, I think, you need to be a little bit unique and have a unique niche. That also helps. But also, to be honest, Phil Jackson is a great coach. So is Bill Walsh, with the 49ers. But you need to have talent around you to be able to pull it off. So when you have guys that are really good at post-production, really good at the edits, it makes it better. Like right now, we have SBK Lifestyle. He's the first editor that came out of the Black Manosphere. He actually moved to Uganda to be with my team. And he's producing some hits for me right now. So I think it's just having the skill set of working with editors every day. They know your style. They know how you do things. And then they because there's no limits in my stuff. So once we find out something that works, then we just build the strategy for it. At first, you don't know. You're just starting out. But as you do it every day, you can add these things. You kind of get a feel for the content. So it's more of a repetition thing. But yeah, I mean, our guys can pull off any sort of edit. They know the culture. Some of the African guys have a little bit of a difficult time with the African American culture. What's funny, but Dima's a Russian guy, and he studies everything, so he knows what's funny. He knows what's not funny. So yeah, it's just something that I let the guys be a part of the show. I even call my editor's name out on the show. It's something I do. Dima, who the clapping sounds?
It's almost like hip hop artists calling out their producers. I definitely heard you do that. But okay, so in terms of the Manosphere, now you have over 166,000 subs right now. Is this your largest channel? Did you ever lose a channel or anything like that?
Almost lost a channel, but I haven't lost one.
Talk about why the Manosphere is so controversial, because the numerous people have lost channels and had to start from scratch and all that. Tell us, why is it so controversial? What's the issue, do you think, that sets this off for so many people?
Telling Black women the truth is what makes the Manosphere controversial. I think that we've gotten better over the years at relaying that information out, because it, and being a little bit more pragmatic about it, if you will. But the thing about it is that, Black men are not supposed to have an opinion about what's going on in the Black community. All that we need to do is shut up, do what people tell us to do. And we're not supposed to have any standards. So once you're a Black man and you're saying, no, I don't want to deal with a woman that, has kids already. No, you basically, when you're saying the same things that women are saying, I don't want no scrub. Well, if we say we don't want no female scrub, then all of a sudden there's hate speech, you're inciting violence against women and all this other stuff. You're hearing is a lot of African-American men talking about where their standards are now. And they don't want to be that guy in the Black community taking care of somebody else's kids, are being verbally disrespected, or not being appreciated for what they're doing. And they're tired of that shit. So once you're able to say that, that's when a lot of women are going to really come after you. They feel should accept them that no matter where they're at. And the reality is that the Black community cannot afford to accept Black men where they're at or Black women where they're at. Both sides have accountability to do much better than what we're doing now. But the reality is that Black men are just supposed to be able to accept whatever that Black women give us. And that's the controversial. That's our unique issue with Black men. We're the only men in the world that are expected to be under our women. You won't find it in Africa. You won't find it in Uganda. You won't find it even in Brazil. But in America, where the only unique situation is we're supposed to, even in the UK, because the UK will still have a lot of Caribbean and African people there. That's going to operate more on a patriarchal position in the relationship. But African American men are the only men in the world that are expected to take whatever somebody gives them. And people are supposed to beat them down. And when you say you don't want to do that, all of a sudden you hate women. Why the controversy is there. Just like you talked to me about this particular thing called IGotStandardsBro.com. Now you're talking about somebody you can do a video, but women can have practically nothing going on, nothing to offer a man that they want. And they expect that they should be able to get this guy. Largely, he doesn't even exist. He's more of a unicorn. But, she's supposed to get this guy, even though she has nothing to offer said individual. And when we come out and say that, and I think that's exactly what Kevin Samuels is saying, you can't get that. Who are you to ask for that and demand for that? Have you seen what your life is like? That's called hating women. And that's why the Black Manosphere gets so much disrespect. Now, here's the problem. Here's the issue, Dr. T.S. Johnson. Because of the success of Kevin Samuels, the Black Manosphere has more female fans than ever. See, that's one thing that has made us a little bit more mainstream. We used to just have no female fans. But over time, a lot of supporting our community. Not that we're asking for it, but a lot of women are tired of women's shit, if you really want to be honest. And they know that we're right. Okay? I mean, even if they don't like us, a lot of women know that what Black men are saying are the truth because they see it with their friends. They see it with their mom. They see it with their cousins, And that's why Kevin Samuels has so much success because of that. That's what I think. I think that's the issue.
Okay. One of the things I'm noticing with your channel is I've started to see, especially the Kanganda channel, I'm seeing discussions about Pan-Africanism and it's not limited to some of the issues that you used to hearing from in the Manosphere. You're kind of branching out. Tell us about what the future of the Manosphere looks like to you and the future of Oshay Duke Jackson's work in media looks like.
I think what we're looking to see in the Manosphere. Let me give a shout out to Tariq Nasheed. Tariq Nasheed weighs $1.1 million in Hidden Color Museum. What we're going to look for in the Manosphere, what you'll probably look for, you're going to look for us not blaming white supremacy and calling out white people for whatever they're doing. I don't think you're going to see that. I think what you're going to see is a push for a lot more Black male ownership, a push for a lot for many more Black men to get resources, to get into skill sets. I think you're going to start to see more of a call for Black men to learn powerful industries, create content for our communities, like to look at our community as a $500 billion community, and how can we work together to monetize our community. So more or less of a real powerful self-ownership stance, no matter how small it is. And I'm not saying everybody's going to be a business owner, but you're going to see this shift towards our people can support us and that we don't need said individuals to support us. We don't need that group to help us anymore. We're going to try to do it for ourselves. And that is, if you're getting into whatever it is, you'll see more people trying to help people up. You'll see more infrastructures being built to help certain individuals as time goes on. You'll try to start to see that changing in the culture, right? That culture to say, hey, we have this amount of money. We have our people that are skilled and talented. Let our best people decide what we're going to do. The Dr. T.S. Johnsons of the world. Okay, the Dr. Ronald Neals of the world. Let's use our platforms to fund our best guys. Okay? Just like the white folks do. You're going to see that more of a call to action with more bigger conferences, more funding of our own things for ourselves, versus waiting for the white man to do it or waiting for other people without blaming him, right? I think that's what you're going to start to see. And I think you're going to start to see is also with the Pan-African world being what it is, and Dr. Mark Echo said this. He says, you know what, the best investment that a Black man can make that automatically helps him out is if he doesn't marry in the African American community, is to marry somewhere in the diaspora, because you instantly get more opportunities. And I think that's what we're trying to see at the same time, is that as Africa is rising, that we want to be able to help grow with the African community also, because we are part of it. We're an ethnic group inside of the Pan-African community. So to get Black men to focus more or less on what's going on with us in America, and then how can we use our advantages to partner with certain talented people in Africa to achieve certain things by ourselves, no matter how small it is. So that's what I think that we're going to do, using myself as an example. Just dealing with where we're at, taking the time, not worried about how much money that we have or where we're at right now, but knowing that we are having the ability to get better and to our best people to take care of our people at the top, making ways for our best people to stick with us, or our talent can improve. Because now we have Dr. Chiasan Johnson, right? But we need to make sure that what Dr. Chiasan Johnson is doing, we support Dr. Chiasan Johnson. We support Dennis Sperling. We support our best people to keep them wanting to create for us, because every community gets better by who's thinking for you at the top. So our own think tanks and our own ways out of political issues, just like the whites have it, or the Jews have it, or the gays have it. That's where I see the Manosphere going towards, that, having one's ownership in one's media, creating content for us, whether it's like Tyler Perry did it for women, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Monetizing our own, there to do that.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't mention or ask about the Negro Manosphere website. Now, to my understanding, this is your brainchild. Is that correct?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about how that came about and what your plan for that is. Yeah.
So the NegroManosphere.com came as the answer to Return to Kings. So Obsidian had wrote over there, and still we post over there a few times a month. But once I get done with here, I'm going to really revamp it and make it back into something daily. Just put a lot of money over there. But the Negro Manosphere was really a community for Black men. It was targeted towards the African American man, and basically being an online barbershop. And we've had some really great articles over there about Rom. I want to bring him back. I'm trying to do some corrupt activities and bring Dr. Chiasan Johnson over there, just to get our best guys creating the content for our men, right? Because we're an underserved community. So the Negro Manosphere was doing really well at one time, up until about a year ago. I got really busy. Obsidian got sick. Some of our guys left. But we're going to be back, because we have the financial support to keep that going. The guys really like it. We have a lot of things to offer in various things. We have a lot of talent out there that can help us out. It's a really good site. We have over 1,300 articles over there. We have free ebooks. I just think that the Negro Manosphere is just a really awesome site for African American men that are looking at media for Black men, or as far as a blog, like you would have like Ebony or Essence.com or Bossip. And that's what the aim was. I got kind of caught up in other stuff, but I think I want to bring that back to that. Madame Noir, which is really excellent blog for Black women, doing that sort of thing for Black men. Black men deserve, and I want everybody to understand this, Black men deserve the best of everything, just like the other groups do, which is why I go so hard on my YouTube videos and on my editing, stuff like that, because Black men deserve a good show just like anybody else. And we have to be, as online entrepreneurs and brothers from our community, we have to want to give our men the best of what we got. Not the worst. Our guys deserve the best, okay? Our people deserve the best, because many people walked in the struggle for us. A lot of our men that died for our people, that opened the door for people like you and me. The reason why I'm in Poland today is because somebody died for me. Somebody put their best out for me. So we have to encourage our men, because our men are our leaders in our community. And if we don't give them our best, how can we expect them to give our best to us? So our guys deserve something that they can be proud of and has quality. Now, Doc, I will tell you, I'm going to put some booty models over there, because I know these Negroes like some booty. So I know what they're looking for, Doc. So, I know you might be over there too. No, I ain't going to tell nobody. But we need to give our guys the things that they need. And our guys need to be entertained. Our guys need to be educated. And our guys really appreciate that we care about them. There's so many emails I'm pretty sure you get and I get. Man, watch your videos. I was like this, but because of your inspiration, I'm now doing this. I just want to email you and say thank you. And
Absolutely.
that's what it at the end of the day, Dr. Chison, that's right there is what gets me every morning. It ain't really the money. I made a lot of money. But the fact that I know that our guys are being helped at the very, very general core, that's my passion.
Okay. Absolutely. Look, man, I really appreciate you taking the time to let me interview you. I know you're crazy busy. You're operating on Poland time, Ugandan time, you all over the world. But no, I really want to thank you for doing that, because I want people to understand what's going on with Black men online. And I think there might be people who are really missing the importance of what's happening, because this last decade, I would roughly say, has been crucial in terms of Black men articulating themselves, and you've been one of the leading figures in that. So thank you for coming up today and sharing this with us. Appreciate it.
Brother, I'm so glad that we have, and I'm always so thankful for you. You are intellectual wheelhouse. You are a really talented man, very smart. Even when I interview you, I said, Dr. Chison Johnson, teach me at least what I didn't know. And so I go and use that word like I made it up or something. Yeah, brother.
You go
undergird. What the hell is an undergird? I kind of understood what it was, but that's pretty good. Like how you put undergird. That's a good one. So I'm really thankful that we have people like you that are in our community, because every other group in the world, and I'm going to say this, in the Black community, a lot of our people that are speaking for us are the PDDs of the world, and which is why we don't have anything, right? Because we have idiots and buffoons who I don't even think their neurons are firing, but they're giving advice on what is political actions that should be required for say a group. But when you have people like such as yourself who have researched in every other group in their think tank, to have somebody that is representative of your qualifications, of your academic skill set. But in the Black community, often we are looking at people like T.I. And no, we can't. We as men, we can't move like that. We have to have our best people pulling the strings. Okay, that's the only way it works. You can't have idiots running the pit. Well, you say the prisoners can't run the jail cell, right? And that's what's going on right now in Black America. We need our best and brightest people to help our men, because that's the only way we're going to be able to solve this. We're not going to be able to solve this with the hotep talk, and I like that. We're not going to be able to hoop and holler our way out the message. We need intelligence from the forefront, and our best people have to be there with some up here, right? And I try to tell our guys all the time, we need to support Dr. Chison Johnson, because he's one of our men, number one. And look at what he's doing for our people. So we need to start to do that. And I thank you so much for us. And when I get my YouTube check play, I'm gonna come over there and trick something off on Black Manosphere Studies now. You just wait a few days, brother. I'll pay a few phone bills. I'll be right over there to you. Okay.
Much appreciation, brother.
I'm good for it too. Shit.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks to Oshay Duke Jackson for coming up. And I want to particularly thank you for joining the Institute for Black Male Studies. Please check back with us. Make sure you support the site, support the Institute. You can do so by going to patreon.com. You can put in Dr. T. Hassan Johnson, and you can become a monthly supporter of the Institute, as well as go to the Institute for blackmalestudies.com. You can purchase merchandise to support the Institute that way as well. And of course, share the videos and spread the word. All right. Thank you for coming in. Peace.